Hello everybody, my name is Hunter Rustad, and this is my final for Object-Oriented Programming 1. I did the Unity Game Design option. Here's the script for my player. I have the rigid body, which controls the forces on the character. It's my sprite render, which is for my flip function to change the way the character is facing when his movement direction changes. The animator for the animations. Facing right, which is part of the direction for the flip. The Boolean grounded, which is used in the jump mechanic to make sure my player is on the ground before he jumps, because I don't want any mid-air jumps. This is a powered up Boolean, and this has to do with the transformation, which you'll see later in the game. The ground check radius, ground layer, and ground check all have to do with checking to see if the player is grounded. The jump power, which is how much force is used in the player's jump. Move speed, which is the speed of the movement of the player. And the player health, which is how much health the player has. Capsule collider for the player. This is a transform and a Boolean variable spotted, which are used with my raycast. Here is enemy script, which I use to get the script for the enemy to be able to use variables from my enemy script. Alright, here is the start method. And here is the player collider, get capsule collider, which basically just selects the capsule collider for the player. Here's getting the rigid body, getting the renderer, getting the animator. Here's the update, which updates every frame. If grounded, so if the player's on the ground, and input.getAxis jump is greater than 0, then the animator, a Boolean is set in the animator, is grounded, is set to false, meaning that he is now in the air, and then force is applied to the rigid body to make the player go into the air, and then the Boolean grounded also turns to false. Here we have grounded equals physics 2D overlap circle ground check dot position ground check radius. This is all checking to see if the player is grounded and setting the Boolean in the animator. Although I believe I ended up not even using that. I didn't make a jump animation because I ran out of time and it proved not to be necessary. But it's there if I were to want to add one. It could be easily done. Here is the move, which is input.getAxis horizontal, so you can either use the left or right arrow keys or the A and D keys. And here is the flip function, or flip method, sorry. If move is greater than 0 and is not facing right, then it will flip. Else if move is less than 0 and it is facing right, it will flip. So this just means if move is greater than 0, then the player is moving towards the right. And if the player is moving towards the right and not facing right, we want it to face right. My RB.velocity equals new vector2 move times move speed. My RB.velocity.y, and that is the force that is applied to the player to make him move. Instead of just translating him around, an actual force is applied to make it more natural. And then this just sets a variable in the animator to do the walk animation. These are two methods for the raycast, and then just behaviors, which is just things that the player does. And now here come the methods. Here's the flip method. Facing right equals not facing right, so just swaps it. MyRender.flipX equals not MyRender.flipX, so same thing there. Just swaps it. On collision, enter 2D, collision 2D, collision, all this stuff, like right here, is just on collision. When my player is powered up, so he's in his transformation, if he collides with the enemy object and the X key is pressed, a melee is done and the enemy loses health. Otherwise, if the player is not in the transformation, he takes damage, but that's later on. But if the player, instead of colliding with the enemy object, by tag, collides with the finish object, then a different scene is loaded. It starts this coroutine you win, which is down here. All it does is just load a scene. Here's some other enumerators, interfaces that are part of coroutines. These ones just wait for seconds. Something happens after a certain seconds time passes, and in this case that is ending the transformation and ending the melee animation. Here's an on trigger enter that's used for the power up, what happens when the power up's picked up, and here is that start coroutine, because the transformation only lasts for 10 seconds. Here is the raycast, and here are the behaviors for the player. The raycast just makes a line, so I can see if the enemy is in range of the ranged attack. And the behaviors are if spotted, so this is just the ranged attack right here. If the enemy's within range and you press C, then the ranged attack Alright, here's the power-up script. Nothing real fancy. just when an on trigger, when the player walks into the power-up gets destroyed, because we don't want to just hang around. Here's a timer script, because my game is timed. Time remaining, 100. Some text for a timer, text to be displayed in the game. And here's score, because this also controls the score. Here's the enemy script. We got that because when you destroy the enemy, it adds to the score. And here's just getting the enemy script. Here's the update, time remaining, minus equals time dot delta time is just a rundown of the time from 100 down to 0. And here's adding the text of the time remaining and the score to the canvas of the game. And when an enemy is destroyed, it adds 50. I had to add an extra boolean here because it kept repeatedly adding 50, so I had to stop it after 1. And here is a coroutine. Time ran out. Just loads game over if the time runs out. Here's the enemy script. Just getting the render for the flip, capsule collider, health. Here's positions for the raycast, the speed that the enemy moves, raycast for the flip, and the destroyed variable that has to do with the scoring. And here's the player script, so you can access the player health in the start, just getting the components for the enemy. This is the enemy movement. The enemy just moves back and forth between these two positions. Oh, sorry, I said these were for the raycast, but they're for the movement. These are for the raycast. So it just goes between 2 points using the math.sign function, or method, sorry. Here's the flip for when it gets to one end and then flips back. Raycasting and behavior methods. Here's the flip. On collision enter. When he collides with the player loses health when he's not transformed. Else prints the player is invincible. Here's the raycast. Here's this behavior. If enemy health gets below 1, it's destroyed. And destroyed boolean is set to true. Here's the game over script, which gets the component for the player. If player health drops below 1, start coroutine, which just loads the game over scene. Now here's the game. I will just immediately start playing it because I'm running out of time. So here's the jump. Here's the walk over to here. Here's the power up, the transformation, animation, melee the enemy. And he's gone. Score goes up 50. Go to the end, and I win. If I were to not grab the power up and get hit by the enemy, game over. Or if I were a timeout, but that takes too long. This game is loosely based on My Hero Academia. I don't know if anybody's seen it who's listening to this, but Toshinori is a character who turns into a hero All Might, but can't sustain the form for long. But he is near invincible in that form, and that's what this game is based on. I'm about to be out of time. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.